The email from my real estate attorney sat in my inbox, its subject line making me smile. Maple Grove acquisition final paperwork complete. I took a slow sip of coffee in my penthouse office, watching the Boston skyline shimmer in the morning light. Below, my company's logo adorned half the buildings in the financial district. I'm Hannah Mitchell, though in the real estate world, I'm known as Hannah Foster, my mother's maiden name before she married into the prestigious Mitchell family. At 33, I own one of the largest property development companies in New England, but my family still thinks I'm a struggling real estate agent living in a rented apartment. Miss Foster. My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Your mother called again. She wants to confirm you're coming to Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow. I glanced at the framed photo on my desk. Maple Grove, the exclusive suburban development where I grew up, where my family still lived, and as of this morning my newest acquisition. Tell her I wouldn't miss it, I replied, finally opening the attorney's email. The documents confirmed what I already knew. Through a series of shell companies, I now owned every house on Maple Drive, including my parents' beloved colonial and my brother James's recently purchased mansion. My phone buzzed. Mom, right on schedule. Hannah, darling. Her voice dripped with artificial sweetness. I just wanted to make sure you got the address. James's new house can be tricky to find. I know where it is, Mom. I shuffled through some property assessments on my desk. The white colonial at 42 Maple Drive. Yes, isn't it magnificent? Your brother has done so well for himself. 5 bedrooms, a pool. He paused meaningfully. Such a shame you're still renting that little apartment downtown. I looked around my 5,000 square foot penthouse, with its panoramic views and custom everything. My place suits me fine. Well, if you'd chosen a more practical career path like James, you might be able to afford a real home by now. Real estate agent. She sighed heavily. I still don't understand why you gave up your position at your father's firm. Because being a junior accountant at Mitchell & Associates wasn't exactly part of my plan to build a real estate empire. But I kept that to myself. How is Dad's firm doing? I asked innocently, though I already knew. Mitchell & Associates had been struggling ever since losing their biggest client, one of my shell companies, 6 months ago. Oh, you know your father, always busy with important clients. Her voice tightened slightly. Though I'm sure he'd still take you back if you asked nicely. I'll keep that in mind. I checked my watch. I need to go, Mom. Client meeting. Probably someone looking to rent a 1-bedroom apartment, she laughed. Don't forget, dinner's at 6 tomorrow. Try to dress appropriately. I ended the call and pulled up the property records for Maple Grove. The development had been declining for years, though my family refused to see it. Property values were dropping, maintenance was being neglected, and the homeowners association was a mess. Perfect conditions for a takeover. My assistant buzzed again. Miss Foster? The board is ready for the Maple Grove presentation. I gathered my materials and headed to the conference room, thinking about how different my life was from what my family imagined. They pictured me showing rental properties to college students, when in reality I controlled billions in real estate across 3 states. The conference room was packed. Development directors, property managers, and financial advisors, all waiting to hear my plans for our newest acquisition. Good morning. I took my place at the head of the table. Let's discuss the future of Maple Grove. My CFO Michael started the presentation. The acquisition was completed this morning. 48 single-family homes, all prime real estate despite recent market decline. Previous owners had no idea they were all selling to the same buyer. Including the Mitchells? Someone asked. Especially the Mitchells, I smiled. My family is quite proud of their property ownership. Or at least they were until this morning. The meeting continued, but my mind wandered to how this all began. 10 years ago, I had indeed started as a real estate agent, learning the market from the ground up while my family mocked my career choice. Real estate agent? James had sneered at every family gathering. Couldn't hack it in finance, huh? But while they were laughing, I was watching. Bernie. Building. I saw opportunities they missed, patterns they ignored. When the chance came to buy my first commercial property, I was ready. 1 building became 2, then 10, then 100. I reinvested everything, living modestly while James flaunted his leased BMW and designer suits. I worked silently while my parents bragged about his executive position at a mid-level investment firm. Every family dinner became an exercise in enduring their condescension. "Still showing apartments?" James would ask, adjusting his fake Rolex. I could get you an interview at my firm. Entry level, of course. "The rental market is so unstable," Mom would add. "You'll never own property of your own at this rate." Even last Christmas, when I'd closed a $200 million development deal, they'd been more interested in James's plans to buy his dream house in Maple Grove. A knock interrupted my thoughts. My assistant entered with an urgent message. The Maple Grove Homeowners Association had called an emergency meeting. Apparently, the news of the mass buyout was spreading. "They're demanding to know who's behind Foster Development," Jessica said. "Your brother James is especially vocal." I checked the security feed from the Maple Grove Community Center. There was James in his cheap suit and fake confidence, rallying the neighbors to fight this corporate takeover. "Tell them the new owner will be making an announcement tomorrow," I said. At the Mitchell family Thanksgiving dinner, my board members exchanged knowing looks. They'd all heard about my family's treatment over the years. "Should we proceed with the plan changes?" Michael asked. "Rent increases, renovation requirements, new HOA rules?" "Yes," I said, standing up. "But hold the official notices until Friday morning. I want to deliver the news personally." The drive home gave me time to think. 4 years I'd kept my success hidden from my family, partly because I enjoyed the irony, partly because I was waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the truth. Their constant mockery about home ownership had just handed me that moment. That evening my phone buzzed with messages from various family members, all suddenly concerned about the mysterious company that had bought their homes. All trying to figure out who was behind it. "James, Hannah, as a real estate agent, can you look into this Foster Development? They can't just buy our houses like this." "Mom, darling, your father is very worried about this situation. Could you ask around at work?" "Dad, Princess, we need your professional opinion. This company seems suspicious." I ignored them all, focusing instead on the final details of my plan. Tomorrow they would learn exactly what their struggling daughter had built while they were busy underestimating her. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from James. "Found my lease agreement. These rates are insane. They can't do this to us. We're Mitchells." I smiled, thinking of the new lease terms I'd personally written. "Actually, dear brother," I murmured to myself, "they can. And they will." Thanksgiving Day dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for dropping a bomb on my family's carefully constructed world. I arrived at James's house exactly on time, parking my modest Tesla, one of 12 cars I owned, behind his leased Mercedes. The house was exactly what you'd expect, every expensive feature chosen to impress, without any real taste or consideration. Just like James himself. "Hannah." Mom opened the door, her smile tight. "We were just discussing the Foster Development situation. Such terrible timing right before the holidays." I stepped into the foyer, noting the cheap replica artwork James had bragged about as original pieces. "Oh, what seems to be the problem?" "The problem?" James emerged from his home office, waving papers. "The problem is some corporate vulture bought the entire neighborhood. They're raising rents, demanding renovations, changing all the rules." "Sounds like smart business," I said mildly, hanging up my coat. "Property values in Maple Grove have been declining for years. What would you know about it?" James snapped. "You show studio apartments for a living." Dad appeared from the living room looking more stressed than usual. "Princess, we need your real estate expertise. There must be some way to fight this." "Fight what exactly?" I asked, following them into the dining room. "A legal property acquisition?" "Legal?" Mom scoffed. "They used shell companies' hidden ownership structures. It's practically fraud." I bit back a smile, thinking of the meticulously crafted legal framework that had allowed me to buy their homes without revealing my identity. "Actually, it's standard practice in large real estate deals." "Well, it's not right," James declared, puffing up with self-importance. "I've called an emergency HOA meeting for tomorrow. We're going to demand answers." "About what?" I took my seat at the table, the furthest from James, of course. "The new owner's identity? Their plans for the neighborhood. Everything." He stabbed a fork into his turkey. "And when we find out who's behind this, they'll regret messing with the Mitchells." I pulled out my phone, opening my emails. Would you like to know now? The table fell silent. What do you mean? Mom asked slowly. Foster development. I placed my phone on the table, screen facing them. Would you like to know who owns it? James leaned forward, his face reddening. You know something? I know everything. I smiled. After all, I'm the owner. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. Dad's fork clattered to his plate. James looked like he might choke on his turkey. That's impossible, he finally sputtered. Foster development is worth billions. Yes, I agreed. It is. But you're a real estate agent, Mom whispered. You rent apartments. No, Mother. I own apartments. And office buildings. And shopping centers. I gestured around us. And as of yesterday, every house in Maple Grove. Dad found his voice first. Hannah, Princess, what are you saying? I'm saying that while you were all busy mocking my career choice, I built one of the largest real estate development companies in New England. I pulled out a stack of documents from my bag. These are your new lease agreements, by the way. I took the liberty of adjusting the terms. James grabbed the papers, his face going from red to purple as he read. These rates. This is highway robbery. Actually, I corrected him, they're market rate. You've all been paying well below value for years. That changes now. You can't do this, Mom protested. We're your family. Family. I laughed. Was it family when you dismissed my career at every opportunity? When you mocked my little apartment and said I'd never own property? When you excluded me from investment discussions because real estate agents don't understand high finance? Silence again. Well, guess what? I continued. While you were all bragging about James's fake success and manufactured wealth, I was building something real. Something lasting. And now I own not just a house but your entire neighborhood. This is spite, James accused, standing up so quickly his chair toppled. Pure spite. No, dear brother. This is business. I pulled up the property assessments on my phone. Maple Grove has been mismanaged for years. Property values are down 30%. Maintenance has been neglected. The HO, your precious HO, has failed to maintain basic standards. So what are you going to do? Dad asked quietly. Evict us. Evict you? Oh, that would be too easy. I smiled. Instead, you're all going to be model tenants. You'll pay market rate rent. You'll follow every HOA regulation to the letter. You'll maintain your properties to my exacting standards. Or then we can discuss eviction. Mom started to cry, but I wasn't finished. Oh, and James? Those renovations you've been putting off? The ones that violate at least 6 building codes. They need to be completed within 30 days. I've already scheduled the inspectors. 30 days. He sputtered. That's impossible. The costs alone. Perhaps you should have thought of that before spending your renovation budget on fake artwork and leased cars. I stood up, smoothing my dress. The official notices will arrive tomorrow morning. Consider this your family courtesy warning. Wait, Dad called as I headed for the door. Your mother and I, our house, we've lived there for 30 years. And now you're my tenants. I turned back. Unless you'd like to buy it back? I'm willing to sell. At current market value, of course. Current market. Mom's voice trailed off as she realized what I meant. Their house was worth nearly double what it had been when they bought it. That's right, I nodded. About $3 million given recent comparable sales. I assume you have that available? Oh. Well then, I'll have my office send over the lease agreement. Hannah, please, James tried one last time. We can work something out. A family discount. A family discount? I raised an eyebrow. Like the discount you offered when I needed investors for my first property? Oh wait, you all said real estate was too risky. That I should stick to showing rentals because I'd never understand property development. I picked up my coat, enjoying their stunned faces. The irony is, if any of you had bothered to read a business paper in the last 5 years, you'd have known about my success. Foster development isn't exactly a secret. I just used Mom's maiden name because I knew none of you would notice. We were wrong, Mom whispered. Yes, you were. And now you're my tenants. I checked my watch. I have a meeting with my board about further acquisitions in the area. Seems there are some promising properties on Oak Street too. Oak Street. James went pale. But that's where all my friends live. Not for long, I smiled. Foster Development is very interested in expanding our residential portfolio. The next few weeks were entertaining. James tried everything: lawyers, business connections, even attempting to rally the neighbors against me. But in the world of high-end real estate, my word was law. The renovation notices went out as planned. The rent increases were implemented. The new HOA rules, my rules, were strictly enforced. My family found themselves living in properties they could barely afford, following regulations they couldn't argue with. At Christmas, they tried to smooth things over with a dinner invitation. I declined, sending instead a detailed report of their HOA violations and a reminder about upcoming rent adjustments. So, Hannah, my property manager asked during our year-end review, should we expect any more family members trying to negotiate their leases? No, I smiled, signing off on another acquisition. I think they finally understand who owns their world now. Some might call it cruel, using my success to teach my family a lesson. But as I sat in my penthouse office, watching the sun set over my growing real estate empire, I couldn't help but appreciate the poetry of it all. They said I'd never own property. Now they live in mine. They mocked my career choice. Now they write me rent checks. They dismissed my potential. Now they beg for my mercy. And every time they drive down Maple Drive, passing houses that used to be their pride and joy, they're reminded of the daughter they underestimated, who now controls not just a house, but their entire world. After all, success isn't just about proving them wrong. It's about owning the very ground they walk on.